Well, good afternoon. Welcome to Divas, Diamonds, and Dollars podcast, offering whole life insights and a unique presentation perspective from normally two sisters and sisters, but today it will be just me speaking to the collective sisterhood of women everywhere. So we offer weekly conversations about the status of women today and empower you with the tools and strategies to help you live your best life. Based on our backgrounds in small business consulting, personal finance, and career management, we offer sound advice and share the key success principles for business leadership and personal finance. Importantly, we are speaking to the whole you, and we're here to support you on your personal growth journey. So, as we all know, new buzzwords, they pop up all the time and you sort of wonder where they come from. So two words that I know have been playing everywhere recently are alliance and coalition. So perhaps you are part of an alliance, or maybe you want to start a coalition that will address issues faced by women. So I'm excited to hear from a woman trailblazer who I was inspired to reach out to just by reading a newspaper article in August 2021. So there are numerous women who are making amazing inroads into solving problems that affect small businesses. Sometimes it's the need to network with others, or to market their product, or to raise capital. So without further ado, as they say in show business, I am pleased to introduce Tiffany Hollinger, who is a woman entrepreneur, real estate agent, and financial advisor. She is the owner of the Cleveland area company, Hollinger Financial, which means she is also an investment consultant. But what you probably have not heard about is the Ohio Women's Coalition that she chairs. She has a Master of Business Administration. She has over 25 years of financial services experiences ranging from banker, manager, financial advisor, and she incorporates her finance hat when she's doing her real estate business. So, are you ready, Miss Tiffany, to talk to us while I ask you questions? And, the questions are set up obviously to share certain information, but, feel free to share what you're willing to share. But I know I'm excited, and I know this is so beneficial because, again, I just thought it was a great idea. So you were part of a launched coalition at the state level in Ohio.
Yes.
So when I first read about you, I was led to look up the Ohio Women's Coalition. And there are several questions, I could ask you to share that represent common themes that affect women everywhere. But how about you tell us how this alliance of women support women leaders or women businesses or any other situation that affects what they might do, particularly as it relates to the economy or whatever.
Absolutely, absolutely. First, I would be remiss if I did not take a moment to say thank you for having me on your podcast. Thank you for allowing me an opportunity to share the great things that we are doing. And just thank you from sisterhood to sisterhood.
Oh, our pleasure.
So as a backdrop, a few months ago, and let's say probably when the pandemic first started, our governor got together with a few small business owners to advise him on how he could be of assistance to small business owners. Of that group of individuals that the governor gathered together, which I think the number is about 20, of that 20, to my understanding, only one was African American, only two were women, and one of the two women was the African American, and none of them were what we define as micro enterprise businesses, which are business owners that have less than 20 employees. Now, the interesting thing about that is when you step back and look at the registry of small businesses that are in the state of Ohio, I think the last time I looked at a number, don't quote me on this, but approximately about 92% of the businesses that are in the state of Ohio fall into that category of micro enterprises.
Okay.
So with that being said, a group of women kind of got together on a weekly basis to have a conversation about how can we get the ear of the governor to share the challenges, the pain points of these micro enterprises and small businesses throughout the state of Ohio, to be able to make sure that our voices are heard and resources are being allocated to that population, right? So every week we're having these conversations. We have various legislators that come together, and after a while, you know, the power of women. Most of these women were primarily in the Columbus area, though. Said, "Hey, let's establish an organization where we can advocate for women, so that we could advocate for these voices." Now, because that's how we started, because it was about small business owners, that is our primary focus, but it's not our only focus.
Okay.
The mission of the Ohio Women's Coalition is to advance the economic condition of all women. Okay.
Huge
So,
endeavor,
yes,
right?
yes, right.
Okay.
Now, concurrently, while we were, you know, talking and having conversations, we also were talking to the Department of Development and various administration and the governor and the lieutenant governor, expressing, we know the 800-pound gorilla is access to capital.
Right, right.
So, as well as the litany of other things, you know, and so they heard us loud and clear. And then we got legislation to be added to the books, so that and the result was, now we were amazed when we seen $10 million. Like, we, you know, you ask for something, you think, oh, maybe we might get a couple of $500,000. So we were floored when we seen that it was 10 million.
Right, exactly.
So but that was just a proposal. So we launched into action. Well, let me back up. Again, concurrently, we are formulating this organization, right?
Okay.
We said that when we say coalition, what we mean is a diverse group. So women, African American, white, Hispanic, you know, Asian, that as a coalition. But also the entire state of Ohio, because we have the NABOs who focus on small business owners who are women, and they have an advocacy element. But there's nothing through the entire state of, but they're regionalized, I'm sorry. So you got one in Columbus, you have one in Cleveland. I'm not sure if there's one in Cincinnati or the Toledo area or anything of that nature. So there's no organization that has a collective voice throughout the entire state of Ohio. So when we set a coalition, we want to make sure that we can gather voices from the entire state of Ohio, to the state of Ohio legislators and corporate, you know, decision makers on, again, advancing the economic condition of women. And so we had to formalize as a nonprofit. We are a registered lobbying organization. We are registered with the state of Ohio, and we currently have 5 board members. In our bylaws state that we need to have board members, 1 in each of the 5 geographical areas. Okay. Northeast, Northwest, Southeast, Southwest, and Central. So anyone's listening, we're still looking for board members in the Toledo area. So we need representation in that area. So we go about the business of formalizing and advocating at the same time, right? Because that's the beauty of women.
Yes, yes. So I mean,
we can juggle.
Right. This makes my head spin, it, because I mean, this is just huge.
Yeah.
And Ohio has a lot of cities. And so, you know, and every region is kind of known for certain things. I mean, I'm in the area of the aerospace and aviation area, the Dayton community. but just with the whole nonprofit, the small businesses, of which I've done a lot of business with, there's just such a huge need for what you said. I'm sitting here thinking, I know they don't have hordes of people doing this. And so, and the biggest, and I want to go back to again, why I was so struck by this, because, there's pockets, there's volunteers, there's nonprofits everywhere. And really and truly, small businesses do run the country. People, we all know about the big businesses, but little people don't get, the same amount of press. But, shut down a small business and where are you? You will have an empty house. You will not be able to go get certain things, and, just the whole supply chain thing. So anyway, I want to kind of go back again, how you were doing this at the same time, which is, always another thing. How are we going to do this? And so I'll ask you some other questions as it relates to that. But, I know the subtitle said, and so I just kind of want to say it again. The subtitle, which I didn't share, of this article said, How Ohio Women Got Business Loan Fund in the State Budget. And so I know that Ohio is on the map for various reasons. And that's the other reason I was just so amazed at this, because too often things are just hard. All people hear are all the negative things, and we don't think anything can be accomplished, but you all did that.
Yes.
And the other thing that you pointed out was diversity. We live in a very diverse society, and that's the only way women businesses have made it, really and truly, because, it's kind of like raising your family. You don't really get a choice about everything, right? You just go do it. Well, I think this is the same thing. And so so we talk about various income streams and business lines and leaving a legacy of wealth. And you clearly have said that that's kind of what you're after, the whole woman, the economic things that affect women business. And obviously if it affects their business, it also, it's their livelihood, it's how they're going to put food on the table. Yeah. So why is building wealth important for women? And sometimes people get a little, well, when we talk about wealth, I'm just trying to keep the doors open. But you know what? We're not talking about thinking small, right? And why do everybody else have wealth and women? So we're trying to push it out there.
Beautiful question. So interesting, again, even with my financial advisor hat and having lived several years in the Washington, D.C. area, coming back home to Cleveland and Northeast Ohio and probably Ohio, that word wealth does not really resonate with people. They are, how can I just put food on my table? How can I take care of my children? How can I be able to maybe pass them on a little bit of something? But wealth is not really a trigger word here, right? And so, we understood that we are looking to advance the economic condition of all women, and which is a lot more palatable. People can relate to that.
I like that. So it's going to show up again, advance the economic condition of
women.
Right.
Absolutely. And again, a lot of organizations are out here that addresses the social needs, and so we're very clear that we're not here to be a social organization. We're here to be an economic organization. And to your very point of the question that you're asking and why it's important to men who are the decision makers, is it's not about we are taking more of the piece of the pie. The more that women can increase their economic condition and capacity, the pie gets bigger. And the bigger the pie, then there's more resources, more jobs, more infrastructures, and more contributions that women can contribute to the society. And so it's very important because we're here doing it, but the ability and how we're doing it is at this snail's pace, because we're the epitome of bootstrap, right? I can't remember the study, but it was one, I'm sure if you Google it, you'll find it, that says that of the women who have started businesses, or of the venture capital dollars that have been provided to businesses, I think it's like less than 5% of venture capital dollars startup go to women.
Wow.
Right. And it's studies after studies that tell you that, you know, when pitching, women don't come off as credible as men do. And maybe because we're talking about social construct things, or because again, a lot of times these are lifestyle businesses. We've categorized them as lifestyle businesses, but they're still viable business entities. They still create revenues, they still create jobs, they still pay taxes, they still, you know, so however the lifestyle may be, still very viable. So studies after studies after studies will tell you that the need is there. And sometimes it's not a big need. Sometimes it's just, I need $10,000 to do this marketing program, or I need $10,000 to buy this piece of equipment, or I need to buy a batch of inventory for this big contract, right? Because sometimes we can't grow because the element to jump is beyond our capacity. I have an opportunity to be, I could think of one business owner, she does a retail product of beauty care, right? So here, you get a contract with, let's say, like Whole Foods, and you're able to stock on their shelves. Well, they're not going to just take 2 and 3 orders or 2 or 300. They want 2 or 3,000 products. So now you need to mass produce, and so you need to ramp up really quick in inventory and payroll and all of that. And you got to produce all of this. And it might take you 3 weeks to produce all of this. That means within that 3 week, there was a 2-week pay cycle that you got to pay your staff, and you had to buy all the materials, and you had to do all this and get it together to just get it to them. And I don't know how retail works, so that's not my industry, but maybe
your point is well taken. I mean, for sure.
Yeah, you know, and so God forbid if, or even for myself, I do some general contracting work. Wanted to do this bid, you know, to work for the city, but it was too arduous because I have to do the project, pay my staff for the project, all the materials for the project. When the project is completed, the city comes and evaluates it. Once it's evaluated, then they process to cut me a check to reimburse me. So from the beginning to the end, I could be looking at 60 days. So here are 60 days. I have to advance payroll, material, capital, labor, and everything, and wait for them to reimburse me a check.
Right. So hence the need for capital. And I know what you're saying is true, because again, I work for the federal government, and I used to say, oh my gosh, because we're kind of slow sometimes, and you're, you know, and you know, kind of as a sidebar, and maybe I don't even know if this is something you all could do, but at least there are, you know, some innovative people, which I think you are one. Because you've seen it from various angles, and that is how, you know, we got to get stuff to our people faster. So, because I hear there's so much knowledge, I got so many questions running around in my head. So let me, so you're out there, you have been, you know, like I said, in DC, in the Cleveland area, you do various things. So I know that, so we had a pandemic, you know, we're still dealing with that. And so you had to figure out a way how to provide services, to provide help, but, you know, still pay yourself. So I know you had a website, Ask Tiffany. Okay, so on that, there were 3 words that resonated with me. One is, I'm here to help. And you know what? Really, who are the ones to say that? It's usually women. It's not men. You know, this is not to cascade men, but I'm just saying it's sort of our makeup to say and do that. And so that's why we're here to help, you know, streamline, to help people, you know, kind of focus on the areas that they need to. But the other part, the 3 words I was drawn to was plan, protect, and prosper. So, you know, we got wealth at the end. We know there's an economic need in the beginning, but in the middle has to be plan, protect, and prosper. So those are the takeaways. So how do you use your platform to help women in that regard?
So that's my business. So that
Okay.
Plan, Protect, Prosper is the website of Hollinger Financial, which is my business, right? And so I, again, 25 years as a financial advisor. I'm basically a planner. I sit down with people and help them identify and articulate a plan of action and how to create a roadmap to get them from point A to point B and insulate the plan and their family from the what ifs or catastrophic events that could possibly happen, right? And so years of doing that, I never really can kind of take that hat off. But when I transitioned back home to Cleveland, I kind of transitioned to real estate. But you never can kind of like not,
That's
you
right.
can't unlearn things,
You're
right?
That's exactly right. Right.
Yeah.
Actually,
So
you just build on them, right?
yes, you build on them, absolutely. So so now I do real estate and I invest, and then I'm an investor, right? So I guess it's kind of, it all kind of like marries together a little bit, right? And so, and I still help people buy, sell, and invest. But my role with the organization, and it's probably what drew me to them as part of this, is also how can I invest in the state of Ohio? Because I am a believer, and I guess that is reflective of my website, is that I personally believe it's my responsibility to leave people, places, and events better than how I found them.
Okay.
Right. So I was invited to the call, and they had maybe had a couple calls by the time I came on board.
Mm-hmm.
Then I started participating with the every weekly calls, and and we grew. We probably did calls for almost about a whole year before we officially formalized paperwork documents,
Okay.
right? Filed for registrations, and we still concurrently working, and advocating and doing these various things. But that's why I'm there. How can I make this situation so that the next Tiffany that comes along doesn't have to be as audacious and fight as hard or be as, excuse my language, maybe dogmatic as I am to make opportunities. I realized that, opportunities have not been laid unto me. I have had to create them, And so for the next generation or whatever, sometimes this world is getting a little murkier. It's not defined clearly black and white. We live in this world of gray.
Yes.
So how can we make sure that we can, advance the condition of all women? Because let's not be remiss. Studies say in the state of Ohio, and probably throughout the country, that if you did any one of two results, depending on who did the interview, conclusively, the rankings will be white men, either white women, black men, black women, or white men, white women, black women. But however, every one of those you get, black women are at the bottom.
Right. Yeah.
So we still have that intersectionality about women's issues as well. So I can't be at the table and not have a concern, because I wear two hats.
That's right.
I'm African American and I'm a woman. Right. So if I don't advocate for me, I clearly can't sit on the sideline and expect somebody else to advocate for me.
Right. So you have kind of walked into my next question, which is, you've gone through some challenges, right? You want to share a couple of them? Or, I mean, we the beauty is, and I think it's part of his life, but it's the makeup of someone such as yourself. You know what? Yeah, you're going to have obstacles, you're going to have challenges, but you didn't stay there. You rose above them and you got through them. But I think sometimes it's helpful to share our challenges with others so that they don't think that, oh no, this is not a cakewalk. You're going to run into some, be expecting. So what's your way of acknowledging that and getting through it?
So great question. I will say that my entire life has been a sequence of interesting events.
Okay.
If you ask me what I want to be when I grow up, I still don't know, right?
Okay.
Like, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I can tell you who and what I am now, but I'm not sure if that's what, when I was younger and you think about what you want to be, and right?
Exactly.
But one thing for sure is, when I look back, I will say this one thing and then answer the question. I don't know where I got it from. I don't know where it came from, but I have had an overwhelming level of confidence in myself.
Okay.
Right? And I don't think that my parents were conscientious about pouring self-confidence in me. I don't know if they had a playbook of how to pour it, but whatever they did, whatever the circumstances of my family and my neighborhood that I grew up in, one thing that I have never doubted was me.
Okay.
Right? Not saying that I'm perfect.
Right.
Like not saying, but and I have only self-discovered this looking back over my life, right? As they say, right?
That's right.
Because my mother was very adamant about education. And so I ended up going to a high school that was mixed. And at that particular time, it was maybe about 60-40, 60% white, 40% black. So it was mixed. And, and it was like, okay, here's probably my introduction, to some mix. I did do some elementary school where I was like one of very few African Americans that went to school. Like I went to one elementary school where it was 8 Black kids, and the bus came to pick up each one of us and took us to this K-9 school, right? And so I'm the only. I go to The Ohio State University, which is not an HBCU.
Right.
It's not 60-40.
Right.
Right. And it's not 60-40. I'm clearly of a minority, right? I go into an occupation that is financial services, stockbroker, right? Like I'm the only African American. I'm the only woman, right? But as I look back, I realize I've always carried my own, and then I said, I guess there was a little something to me that said, I want to go to DC.
Okay.
I want to go to Chocolate City. I want to go where there's a larger population of progressive middle class African Americans. I want to go there, right? And there I went. Again, not realizing how audacious that was. And I mean, I had a house. I sold all my belongings. I sold all of my content. I moved there with like 3 boxes of books and my toothbrush.
Wow.
That was it, right?
Okay.
And there I lived, and it was great because here is a large population of middle-class African Americans. I lived in Prince George's County, which is an anomaly throughout the country, high educated, and I am in heaven. And again, I don't know, a sequence of interesting events led me back home to Cleveland. I didn't plan for it. It was just like a decision. And that's how when I make decisions, I just go and I just do it, right? I don't plan, I plan how to do it, but when I make a decision, I implement and I'm gone, right? So I came back and I'm like, hey, because if I'm doing all this great stuff here, I can clearly do all this stuff in Cleveland, where I have extended family, cousins, grandparents, my siblings.
Right. Okay.
Not so much.
Right. Okay. Very. Yeah.
But here I am. So I'm used to being the only. So I am comfortable being the only. I'm comfortable with if majority of the people who are around me don't look like me. That's not a nuance or a level of insecurity or being uncomfortable, because and maybe that was the journey that God meant for me to have, so that I could always be comfortable, right? I could always be that bridge between the two worlds to say, listen, no, and come on, let's do, And that's where I even sit and serve with the Ohio's Women Coalition. Most of the women are not African American, right? Most of the membership to date is not African American, and let me say, the collective of the women, I don't have to preach diversity. They speak it amongst themselves, which is really great. Yes, I'm just a conduit to also help, but I don't feel uncomfortable and insecure about the fact that I'm like, great, so let's do this then. And they did the news channel, the news report. It did drive a lot of African American women, primarily from the Cleveland area, into membership, because representation does matter.
That's right.
Right?
It does. Yes, it does.
So that's important. And what I appreciate about the organization is because I didn't volunteer to be the chair. Okay. as it was formalizing, we needed 3 members, we needed 3 volunteers to have to start a nonprofit. And I just sat back, I saw the call, I just sat back, okay, y'all do it, let me know when y'all
Right,
get
right.
it started, right? Because I'm busy, I got stuff to do,
Right,
right?
yes, yes.
And so I get an email, from one of the ladies, and she says, we need 1 more volunteer. I said, okay, I'll volunteer, like no biggie. And so the information comes out and it was like, oh, Tiffany is the chair. I was like, wait a minute. I didn't know I was so I was voluntold, right?
I do understand how that is, and it's a couple things. So I'm gonna go back to, well, I'm gonna talk about this point and then I'm gonna do a go back.
Okay.
But I've been on both ends where you feel like you're always the one doing something, but then when you look around, who are the people who always are doing something? Who are the leaders? People know who the leaders are, and that's who they go to. That's who they ask because they trust them. I kind of learned it maybe the hard way in that I felt like, okay, what do I look like? The dumpster? Here you are. But then later, you turn that around and say, no, there's a level of trust and relationship there. And people are looking at you, no, you are the person. And so sometimes we want to say, oh, I'm so busy and I don't want to do that. And then we miss out on opportunities too. And so sometimes, we can be our own worst enemy. So I think what I know you're doing and the coalition's doing, and what I've tried to do as I've been mentoring and coaching people is, no, you got to step into the limelight. And when you're tapped on the shoulder, you have to say yes. And worry about the problems or issues later. Don't be thinking about the problems or issues up front. Yeah, you got 20, you know what, you're always gonna have 20 things. Because even if you don't take the lead, you still gonna have all that to do, right? So I'm glad you share that. So, I could kind of point out that again, I consider you a trailblazer. So as a trailblazer, people who innovate, this is it. This is what we're looking at, right?
Right.
So I got to go back because you are Miss Confidence, and but we know that everybody didn't get there. So I have talked to so many women who have a lot going on. I think the world of them, but they didn't have that confidence. There's always this confidence thing. So what do you think? So maybe you never needed a mentor or network, but I think I learned later, late in life that, well, the best of us probably have one, we just don't know it to a degree, right? Again, it's people who recognize you and people who launch or encourage you or advocate for you. That is a network right there. But what would you say about people who need a network or a mentor? Because I know I must sit in the corner and don't. Right?
I would say, so to just, I'm a wordsmith as well, so forgive me. I just want to categorize a couple of things.
So, as they say, do you?
You're right. So I think like there's a difference between confidence and knowledge. I didn't know everything. So I was astute enough to know that I've always had informal mentors along the way. But it was my self-confidence that was humble enough to ask.
Yes.
Right. I didn't mind asking for help. I didn't feel like I knew everything. And it's funny because I could tell you stories after stories after stories, various stories about how I've asked a question that most people probably would have chuckled and laughed. And later on, it turned into a very valuable intellectual conversation because I was audacious enough and self-confident enough to ask.
Great, yes, input, because that's the key. Don't sit there and don't say anything. Right.
And so I know I will say this. I could look back in life and think of various benchmarks that were life defining for me. But I will say that my time that I was in DC, I think that because I was there and my immediate family wasn't there, it was just me. I mean, I just upped and moved. I had a friend. I went to stay with a friend, and not a close friend, a friend, right? I didn't know, I did. This is this subconscious, because sometimes we subconsciously know stuff, right?
Right.
I formalized informal family, right? I had a guy that I used to date in high school. His parents were out there. So I would I don't care. I just reach up and be like, hey, I'm out here. And they, of course, said, well, if you need anything, pause. But we never call. Hey, I'm not going home for Thanksgiving. Can I come over and hang out with you all?
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Like, I had enough confidence to take them up on it. Right. I'm a people person, and so I form relationships. And so my first boss, she became like a big sister to me. And so I have relationships with her. If I needed something, I picked up the phone and asked, like, I need this, or I don't, like, even like I'm lost. I'm in the middle of DC, I'm lost. I don't know how to navigate. And she was from DC, and she was like, you turn left, go 3 blocks, turn right.
Well, it is a bit of a trick getting through DC. I've done a lot of that driving, so yeah.
So I have developed a muscle for asking for help. And anytime I needed to make a life decision, right, I would call. Now I will still do it, because my father is me and my father are very much alike. We're both Virgos. He's September 3rd. He's September 2nd. I'm September 3rd, right? Okay. So much alike. I would be like, Dad, I'm thinking about doing da 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 da. And he's like a sounding board. He never tells me no, and he never tells me what to do. He's a sounding board. Did you think about this? Da, 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 that sounds right. No, you don't want to do that, but maybe da 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 da. Again, my friend's family, his dad became like my stepdad out there. Be like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Well, think about this. You know, the woman who was like my big sister, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? And other people are like, what do you think? And so, like, those were my informal advisory board. You know, they were all older than me. Right. So I always had sounding voices. So yes, that was a form of them pouring into me and helping shape me in directions. And I'm agile. I am very self-reflective. And so I would say I'm not afraid to fail, because it's in my failing that I learn. So if I try something, like, hey, I'm gonna try it. And I'd be like, oops, that didn't work, but let me take note. What could I have done differently? What did I be like? Oh, and I don't get defensive, right? I'm not the one to try to justify, well, I did it because of this. I'm like, okay, I did it. I understand my role in it. All right, let's keep going, right? You know, and I'm good for, well, you tell me what you thought I should have did. Like, I guess my defensiveness would always put it back on them, like, well, you tell me what I should have done differently then, because I did what I thought was best at the moment. I'm not saying that I'm perfect, so tell me what you think I should have done. Now, don't get me wrong, in corporate America, that comes across very confrontational, right? And I've always been in sales also. So another thing is, I've never really earned a salary. I haven't got a paycheck every 2 weeks since I left college, really, right? All right. Well, let me take that back. For a couple years, 2 years after college, I had a job. But when I left and left there and got into financial services, I hunt and gather. If I don't fish, I don't eat. Okay. Right? All right. When I came back home to Cleveland for 2 years, I stepped back for a moment to relearn Cleveland. I got a job and I got a paycheck every 2 weeks. But outside of that, my entire trajectory is I'm hunting and gathering. And so it helps you understand your worth, right? It helps you understand, helps you build self-confidence. So all of these years later, I realized I can make some things happen. I realize that I have the skill set and the aptitude to go out here and add value to other people or other situations. But that's a muscle. It's just like working out. You got to take it one step at a time, okay. One thing at a time, right? And I will say, lastly, the one thing that has planted, and I always do this, a mustard seed of faith in me
Mm-hmm.
is I decided to go out on my own in 2006 while I was still in DC to start my own financial planning practice. And I'm going 2006, I got this. And 2007, here we go. And lo and behold, here comes 2008, the tip of the Great Recession.
Right.
And people had money, but everybody was afraid. So nobody would invest with me. Nobody would roll their money over. They would leave it with their employer. Even if they left, nobody wanted to. Everybody was fasting. Woo! And I mean, there were days that I did not have a penny to my name.
Okay.
And so you're talking about a story, not a penny.
Wow.
But here's the thing that I learned is that activity begets activity. I still got up every day. I got dressed every day. I went to my office every day because I am going to something. I got to just keep on moving. Mm-hmm. In that moving, two kind of critical things, and I didn't learn this in the moment. Mm-hmm. See, if we take time to look back, to take a moment and be like,
that's right,
and figure out how do we get through, that's when we learn appreciation. That's when we learn what our skill sets is. That's when we look back, right? And that's if we're willing to be honest with ourselves and look back, right?
That's right.
And so I looked back and I remember there was a guy, he wasn't trying to date me, but every day he picked up the phone and asked me, "What you do today?" I liked him, right? I thought he was trying to date me in my brain, right? You know, he was like, "What you doing today?" And I'd be like, "Well, here's my schedule," right? You know, and so he'll be like, "Well, you got something to do this afternoon." And I was heavy into politics too. And so there was always events or whatever that I would be going to or whatever. So there's going to be food there, stuff like that. I don't say, well, I ain't got no kids. So when I eat, my whole family eat, right? So there's some little flexibility there, right? But he would be like, "Well, meet me for coffee in the morning." And so that was my breakfast. And if I was like, "Well, I'm not doing anything this evening, on my day ends at 5, he'd be like, "Okay, well, meet me at 6 o'clock over here for happy hour." I'd be going. But when I look back, he knew I was struggling and he was there to make sure that I ate every day. Every day. He and I look back like, because he never came on to me. None of that, right? None of that, right? And I just live in the moment. I'm just one of those people like, hey, you know, like, okay, whatever, like, hey, you know. Okay. And then about one other time, my mother was going to see my brother who lived in Mississippi, and her flight had a layover at BWI. So she says, "I'm gonna take my flight, I'm gonna come lay over, pick me up at the airport, and I'm gonna stay with you for a couple of days and take that last wing back home later on." Because that's when Southwest was real flexible. You could, you know, change your, you know, whatever, right? So I said, "Okay, fine." And I'm not thinking I wouldn't go pick her up. Mom hanged out with me, whatever. So I take it to the office with me one day, you know, whatever. And so I have a little rack, you know, the little rack, you know, that got all your files and stuff on it. So she grabs my bill rack and she's looking through my folder with all my bills, and she's seeing all this stuff, past due, past due, past due, past due. And she commits to pull out her checkbook and pay my rent, my light bill, my phone bill, my car was paid off, you know, so all this, and I'm sitting, and so I'm working though, because I'm not paying her no mind. She over there doing her thing quiet or whatever. And I looked at her and I'm like, "Mom, what are you doing?" And she was like, "I don't understand why you are so prideful and won't ask for help." It's like, because in my brain, I'm not even concentrating on what I don't have.
Right, yeah.
But I'm not concentrating on what I don't have. I'm concentrating on what can I do. Right. Okay, I'm working. I'm good, right?
Yeah.
And so and so again, my mother wasn't supposed to come see me. This was a last minute, whatever. But what I realized at that point, and so thirdly, this was the third thing that in that whole manifestation, again, I had a little piece of car, right? It was paid off, but it was a little piece of car. And I remember this guy saying to me, and it was another guy, you know, friend, and he says, "Hey, how you doing today?" I'm like, "I'm doing fine." Because he always marveled at how I could leave corporate America and start my own. So he remarked, he's just like, how you doing? You know how people call you to see how you're doing because they want to see what your struggle is. They call to see how you're making it through. That kind of,
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that then, but I just said to him, the sun is shining. I got a full tank of gas. I am good. And he said to me, whenever I talk to you, no matter how bad things are, and I know that they're bad for you, you never say it. You are always a ray of sunshine. And so I look back and what I realize is that if I could wake up in my right mind and my full facilities,
that's right.
I have an opportunity to fix whatever is wrong. So it is no time to spaz out. It ain't no time to whine. It ain't no time to complain. I thank God I got my right mind. I woke up this morning. I can make it. So all I need is the mustard seed of faith. I'm gonna be all right.
That's right. Well, Tiffany, some of us know we call that taking a text. We can call that my faith story. Or we can just call it, well, you go, girl. So I know you said a lot because, I mean, I just applaud you. I so agree with what you're saying. And, today we look at so many people who are struggling, but it's really up here. It's heart and mind. It's those two. And knowing that you will just do great things. So that's why, we were trying to come up with a title. We have Divas and Divas podcast. The Voyager series was kind of like a how-to. I said, no, this is not a how-to. So what's the name? So we came up with Trailblazer. So you are our first Trailblazer podcast interview. And as I listened to this, I didn't realize that. So to share that, it so fits because, I mean, we know those stories are there and, and most of those stories are not up on a billboard. They're not in a book. It's, a conversation that's told like now. And so I just have to say, wow, I hear leadership. I hear a lot of things and, the development. And so I'm certainly going to be looking for more about the Ohio Women's Coalition. And I know I struggle with, you can't do everything, but I can at least, clap and, try to share the stories.
That's right. That's right.
Because it's really, really very important. So you're an entrepreneur on many levels. Is there anything else you want to share in terms of, well, one, if somebody wanted to find you, what's your recommendation for them to look you up?
So you can find me on all social media platforms at Ask Tiffany H. Okay. So I'm on Instagram and Twitter as Ask_Tiffany H. You can find my Facebook business page, Ask Tiffany H. YouTube, Ask Tiffany H.
Okay.
And you can do all social media, whatever, doing hashtag Ask Tiffany H, and you will find me.
All right. Okay. Very good. So at the end of the day, while you're Miss Sunshine, but you have to say, okay, I got to go buy groceries or I got to go to the doctor appointment. Any last minute advice for how do you keep all that together?
So again, in the moment, it's not fun. So here's truth. Here's speaking truth to power. Here's speaking truth to reality. Here's speaking to, there's times where it was like, oh my goodness, like, I don't know how I'm gonna, right? But I think, again, if you just, activity begets activity. When I look back, even though I might not have had $2 in my account, there was some food in the pantry. Now I might not felt like cooking that rice and beans
I know,
or
right,
whatever.
that's what I was gonna
Right,
say.
yeah, but
Sometimes those
there was
beans or tomatoes, just not what you want at that moment.
exactly. I mean, I don't think now again this and I'm about categories. This conversation is not for the one for a person who's truly don't have it. Like this is not
Right,
that. You know what I'm saying? Right. This is the we having rough times and and I will say though, to my women entrepreneurs, it is okay to sometimes pause and take a step back.
Yes.
There have been many times I have went back to work for very short periods of time though, but it's okay to take one step back so you can take multiple steps forward.
Okay.
Don't sink the ship. Don't do the Titanic. You see when it's getting tough. And a lot of times I would get jobs that were very flexible that allowed me to still run my business, on the side, but here I was getting a paycheck. Here's the holiday season. If you needed to go work at Macy's or whatever, like, don't be too prideful to let the ship sink.
Yes.
Yes. And so, there was times that, it was tough and I had to make decisions. But I also, here's one thing about me though, I always had a job and a side hustle. Right. And I mean, whether it's not I used to do mobile signings. And now a lot of the things were still tangential to what my occupation was, right? Or what my endeavors were. So they all kind of fit together. But,
I call it being visible.
Yeah.
Being
right.
visible.
Yes. And to me, as an entrepreneur, for me, at least, I'm never off. I am always working. I am always on. I am always in the place to meet somebody, network with, because I think it was one gentleman who in real estate had a perfect analogy. He's like, it's like a popcorn. It's quiet for a while. And you get one pop, two pop, three pop, and then next thing you know, you're busy, right? And then you stop, and then there's no pop. For a while. So you got to be comfortable with the non-popping season. Like you got to get comfortable and save, plan, prepare, you know what I'm saying? Because now once you do it the third time, you realize that it ain't always going to pop forever.
Right, that's
right.
That's
so
right.
Prepare for when it's the quiet times, where it's the pipeline that closed up a little bit, or it's not as busy, and don't fret over it, because we let our minds like take us like,
it's a whole other place. Right. Yes. Well, listen, I have so enjoyed this. I mean, it's very fast hour here. So thank you. It was everything I expected and more. Honestly, it was more than I expected. So thank you very much for taking this time, because I don't care, what you're doing, but, it takes time to stop and share you. And so we will.
I would say, if I could, though, again, thank you. Because this was actually refreshing for me, because sometimes we just do, and we don't feel like what we do is having an impact. Sometimes we don't feel like or can sense what we do is being recognized. And I don't do what I do because I want a pat on the back, because if that's the case, I would have stopped a long time ago, right? But I will say that I had a political mentor that was in DC. And when I first came back home to Cleveland, I was just like, I don't understand. Why am I having such a hard time? Like just connecting with people and trying to build synergies and relationships and network. I don't understand what. Like I didn't run into glass ceilings. I ran into glass walls with people, And he said, sometimes a prophet is never received in their homeland.
That's right.
I was like, now, mind you, my family loved me, but I was getting this even from my family.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but I don't understand. It's just me. Like, it's just me, right? It's just me. I'm just Tiffany. And he says, oh, baby, you're not just Tiffany. And so there's a space for us to understand that, yeah, I am a big thing, and to be okay with it.
All right.
And to not have the imposter syndrome, and to recognize that I'm not doing this boastfully or pridefully. I'm doing this because I'm giving back. I could be selfish and just worry about my business. and worry about what it, but no, there's a piece of me who want to give back to my community and give back to my neighbors and help elevate as I rise, right? And so with that, I thank you because I didn't look at me as a trailblazer. I don't look at me as a trailblazer. So for you to have invited me and to saw something and said something, invited me, I thank you for taking the time to sometimes recognize, as we call the unsung heroes, maybe in the communities, to just say thank you. So I thank you very much.
My pleasure. And you will see this. I will email you with the exact date once, and you'll get the whole package, and you can, you know, put it on your own platforms. And of course, that's what we're going to do. But so again, thank you so much. And special credit goes to, this is from our Pink Passport Society. Larisa Troche is, which is my assistant manager of that. And Leadership Coaching, Mentoring, Connections, brought to you by yours truly, Cecilia Benford. So again, wanting to thank Tiffany Hollinger. She was great. And I know that there's so many nuggets that you all will be hearing. So thank you.